Jimmy D and the Wolf, here we are.
What's up?
Yeah. So this week is Thanksgiving in the U.S. What do you got big plans, Jimmy?
Man, I love Thanksgiving. It's one of my favorite times of year. It's a very simple thing to spend a whole day based on gratitude. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Beautiful thing. Gratitude is so important.
Yeah, it's everything.
We are so fortunate. I mean, just living in the U.S., no matter how difficult you might think your life is, if you have a car, you have a roof over your head. My pastor, his sermon yesterday was on gratitude because leading up to Thanksgiving, and I can't verify, but he doesn't normally say things that aren't true. He said if you have those things, if you have a home and a car, you're in the 8% of the world population.
Sure.
There's a lot of poor people out there that are living in don't have the.
Well, bro, we took rides. We took rides in Europe in cars that were literally getting ready to explode any moment.
Yeah.
Remember the one guy that he kept having to stop and shut off the car?
Yeah. It was a 2.5 hour drive to Kiev.
And it was literally getting ready to blow up like any moment, dude. And he knew exactly how to gauge it. Like he'd stop and shut it off for a little bit, and he'd get out and put water in it.
And he was arguing with his girlfriend who got us the gig because she worked at the hotel. We asked for somebody to take us to Kiev.
That was
and she probably double charges, but I mean, they're poor. I don't mind paying them. I think twice. What do we pay them? 100 and some bucks.
Yeah, like $150. But it was hilarious when they were arguing because we didn't understand any of the words, but we knew everything they were saying.
Absolutely.
You remember that? We're like, she's on him.
No, they're young. I mean, they're probably around 20 or so. And she probably saying, got to wait for you to get some money. $100 is a lot of money in Ukraine.
Sure.
And,
but it just backs up that point. If you have a car and you have a house, 8%, that's probably legit, I would think.
And if you have a car and a house and a guitar, what percent does that put you in?
There's nowhere to go after that, man. The pinnacle of success.
Just to segue into our subject today, this is going to be a fun one, and that is the resurgence. I mean, guitar is back, baby.
Yes, it is.
But before we do that, I hope you don't mind if I do. This will be a short one. This is about music, but it's not about guitar specifically. But I'm imagine you're somewhat similar to me. When you get an album or a CD, you like to listen to it in the order that well, okay, let me talk about myself and you see if you agree. I mean, I'm all about wanting to listen to an album in the order that the artist put it in. And I think it's a work of art, and that's how they intended it to be listened to. And that's how I typically listen. How about you on that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, this is germane to 2021. Today in the news, Adele just came out with her new album 30, which is breaking records. I mean, she hasn't come out with an album in like 7 years. The last one was 21. That's 9 years ago, but I don't know. They don't exactly match up with her age. No, 25 was the last one. My bad. She had 21, 25, which was her age. But I think she's in her early 30s. She's not 30 anymore. Anyway, she complained to Spotify. She said that I don't want my album to be listed on shuffle, and the default setting on Spotify is shuffle. And Spotify literally changed their algorithm, and they tweeted, "Anything for you, Adele." Spotify official account tweeted that. And now it's not just on her account, and there are reports that you can't even find the shuffle button. It's not just not the default. You can't even find it. And other albums, the guy that wrote the article said they checked about 10 other albums, and they were not defaulted at shuffle. So win for music listeners, serious music listeners.
Yeah, I think that's a huge win. And I would love to see the concept of albums have a chance again. I mean, she's one of so few artists that could ever pull that card. I mean, how many artists are big enough to say, no, you have to listen to the whole album? And albums were everything back in the day. I mean, the single killed the album, of course, but I'd love to see it get back to that concept.
Well, okay, I'm going to counter your comment there,
Okay.
in my opinion, a little bit, because singles was the way in the 50s. In fact, well, probably because the technology didn't allow it. I mean, that your shirt that has the little adapter thing that most people don't know what it is to go because the hole is a lot bigger. You know, in the 50s, albums, I don't know, they didn't have extended play when they came out. They called it long play. Well, there was extended play, which was now we still use the term EP.
Mm-hmm.
5, 6 songs is called an EP, but that the E stands for extended, which means it can go longer than a single. And then the LP, which is I guess long play. So we still use the term. I mean, I have my EP. I interact with a lot of other artists and development programs, and everybody's saying I'm releasing my EP. It's still a very common term, and it would normally mean, well, what would an EP mean to you? How many songs would you guess if somebody said I have an EP? How many songs do you guess are on that?
I've been out of that modality of thought for.
Well, generally 5 to 7, probably.
Yeah.
So anything beyond that, like an album, an LP, although it would be at least 9. I think any album that had less than should be 10 to 12, but you can have really big ones, like 18, 20. 12 is probably the magic sweet spot for most albums. But so the album concept, it was all about the singles, probably because we didn't really have albums, maybe. So maybe when we had the technical capability to have albums, I guess you're probably right. Album became the thing, and it became an art form. I mean, the Beatles and, well, the Beach Boys started it with Pet Sounds, the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and then I think the whole concept album, I mean, Pink Floyd took it to another level.
Sure.
I mean, what do you think about albums making it a whole listening experience? What do you think bands that pioneered in that? What's your opinion?
It was everything to me coming up, and I still insist on listening to albums in their entirety. If I buy music that I love, I always buy the whole album, and I don't like the shuffle thing near as much as I like the experience of an entire album.
Well, to go even further than that, I can remember riding in a car, and it might have been my nephew or someone else, but someone of like a millennial age, and we're listening to music, and they are listening to the first 30 to 60 seconds of songs and fast forwarding to something else. And I am losing my cool, man. I said, that is not how, if the artist wanted it to be a 30-second song, they would have made it a 30-second song.
Right.
Respect the artist. Listen to view the entire work as it is.
Take the whole thing in, man.
I mean, if you go to see a Mona Lisa or a Picasso, do you cover up your eyes so you can only see half of it? I mean,
well, it's, I think you just touched on something that's really important. It's like most of the songs that I would regard as the most incredible songs I've ever heard in my life, the very first time I heard them, it was kind of like, huh? What's this about? Like, you can't really internalize something that's super innovative or super kind of left field or super avant-garde. You can't really internalize it the first time. You almost want to hit fast forward, and sometimes it's like on albums. I remember the very first time I heard the song Shine On You Crazy Diamond from Pink Floyd. I was like, what is this? It's so long. It goes forever. What is this? And I've never heard anything like it. This is so weird. Like, it almost spooked me. I'm like, I want to fast forward this, but I didn't. I listened it over to, and now it's like one of my favorite tracks ever. So there's something to be said for that too, because now it's people are so quick to hit the forward button instead of taking in the entire body of work, which makes it frustrating for the artist because of, you know, it's harder and harder in that sense. It's harder and harder to be innovative.
Yeah. On top of that, though, the attention spans have gotten so much shorter. I
Exactly.
mean, right? Was an article I read that the
100%.
average human attention span is shorter than a goldfish. I mean that sounds like it's something not true. That's I mean, how a goldfish is like got a brain that's as big as a pin of a needle. But anyway, I started listening. You know, Sergio Leone is a great Italian director, and he did, of course, the trilogy. The Good, Bad, and the Ugly was the triumphant finale of that trilogy with Clint Eastwood and their westerns, and phenomenal. And then Ennio Morricone, who did the soundtrack. I mean, they worked together, and phenomenal stuff. I still could watch The Good, Bad, the Ugly any day. Phenomenal, deep, great writing, filmmaking, and also writing, composing. And he came out with. We've talked about this. He came out with a, I guess, a gangster film, uh, Once Upon a Time in America. And you told me that you've seen it, right? You're familiar with it, and it's on Netflix now. I remember when I got it. I remember I read some artsy magazine and it said, "Oh, you need to get this," and I got it on VHS. It came in two separate VHSs. It was so long that it wouldn't fit on one VHS tape, and I probably still have that somewhere in a box. Maybe it's a collector's item. Anyway, it's on Netflix, and I turned it on the other day and started watching it. And the pacing, dude, I mean, there must have been about 2 minutes of the aged De Niro character staring through a little peephole where he used to spy on the neighbor girl when she did her ballerina. And he went back to the town and he's looking through that window, and he's just, on his face as he's looking through the window. I'm like, I get it. Okay, I get it. He's nostalgic. Okay. So the pace of cutting movies, it's almost painful to watch something that was cut for the current fashion when it came out. When it came out in the late 70s, early 80s. By today's standards, it's unwatchable. Quick cuts. Now I don't know what started it, but the quick cuts almost makes you. I think music videos started it. The quick cuts where you almost get unnerved. I mean, if it does it for an entire 2-hour movie, you couldn't watch it. But when you really want to amp up the energy, you do the really cuts that really, oh, where are me? And it's, you know what I mean, right? The quick
Sure.
cut
Absolutely.
when you want to be disruptive and give the listener or the watcher, the viewer, a sense of uh, unease. You do this really quick cuts.
Pattern interrupt.
Yeah, but back then it was like long cut. We're just going to do super. It was just different era. So the same how that applies to music, I feel that, I mean, back in the day you could have a 45-minute, 1 minute intro, because also the DJs want to talk over it and they got credit for being music, 100% music, and they'd still get their commercial in during the intro because they're talking over the intro. And so they can say that 100% music, and they're technically right because the song was playing, but they're getting the commercial in over the intro. That was a thing in the 80s. And so if you wanted your song to get played, technically you wanted a longer intro because the DJs liked it because they could get their 30-second commercial in and still technically be playing music.
Right.
In my quotes, I look like too narrow of a camera. I can't get them in. So music changes, so it's so I thought also that album vinyl sales are skyrocketing, increasing, doubling year on year, and I was pretty excited about that. But I read an article that kind of tempered my enthusiasm. Do you know that 48% in a recent poll, 48% of vinyl sales, the buyer never intends to play the record?
Bummer.
And a good percentage of them don't even have a means to play it. They don't have a phonograph. They don't have
Wow.
a turntable. It's a collector's item. They like the big graphics. I mean, you could basically almost accomplish the same thing by just sending out an LP, all the sleeves without the vinyl in it, because they're just interested in the graphics. They can read about their favorite artist. Collector's item. So if you think this resurgence in vinyl is an indication that people want to listen to entire albums again, maybe not so much. I mean, some probably. Some. The other 50% that actually plan on playing it.
Yeah. The 50% that are actually going to use it, the product that they just bought.
But going even, so listening to the song all the way through, if it was supposed to be a 30-second or 1 minute song, the artist would have made it that way.
We should start releasing vinyls that don't actually have the record in the. That's the sweet spot. You get the album cover, collector's edition. There's no record in there.
Or just, you could put a vinyl record in there, but it doesn't have any grooves on it. Because there was an article that I read, and I was going to actually do a video on it, and I still may, that the supply for vinyl is about 1/4 of the demand. And they don't have the pressing equipment, and also shortage of plastic. Now, there's a shortage of everything. Thank God, thank you, Jesus, I literally was able to get the brisket that I want for cook for Thanksgiving.
Nice.
I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to find it. I actually had one of my friends also rents from me, but family friend, he's more of a friend than a renter, who saw on my live stream that I talked about wanting to get brisket, and I was wondering if I was going to get it. And he texted me and he said, "Hey, I've got a couple in my freezer. I'll send one to you if you need it." I was like, just like, dude, awesome. Shout out to Nathan. You're awesome, man. Rabbit trail. Where was I going? So, how did I get brisket in there?
Albums, and they don't have the stuff. So
yeah. Shortage of everything. There's a shortage. So many things are a shortage. Paint was the last I heard. If you're construction, you can't get paint.
And if you can, it's stupid high now. It's like $60 for a gallon.
So, you can't, and I know vinyl, and so the quality, the capacity to make vinyl records, and this article that I said that it's not just the actual pressing equipment. You have to have skilled machine guys who can make the pressing disc. That's a metal machining, and that's not just anybody off the street can do that. That's to make the pressing disc, to press the vinyl, takes a tool master, and if is that the term, you have to make a metal die, and that's why the capacity that is there is being aimed more towards big commercial releases. And if you're a small player, independent artist, and you want to do a smaller run, you're probably out of luck, or it's going to be a huge wait. So long of a wait that independent record companies are saying that by the time they get to vinyl, they're actually out of the promotion or marketing period for that record. There is a period. You release a record and you promote it for a period of time. You don't promote it for 2 years. I'm still promoting my 2-year-old record. Please buy it. It's been out for 2 years, but yes.
Kind of didn't work.
So, there's a shelf life, maybe 9 months, maybe after a year-old record, you're probably not promoting anymore. So I don't know it's too old already, probably 9 months, 6 months, 9 months. And if the digital is already released and the CD is out and you can't get the vinyl for 9 months, it's too late, unless you're Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift gets her vinyl. It came out like a year after it came out, and it pushed both of her recent albums back to number 1 on the Billboard 200. But she's at another level.
Of course.
No, none of us will ever reach the level that Taylor Swift is at as far as fandom. So, all right. Any other words of wisdom about albums and playing through songs and that sort of thing, Jimmy?
That's just always been my favorite way to hear music is the entire body of work. You know, I want to hear what the artist was really trying to say. And sometimes you have to take that in as a collective. You know, you have to take in the whole thing.
Yeah. So the other subject that I put up was guitar is back, baby. And I'd first like to go back to just 4 years ago. Here's an article. It was in Billboard. Headline says Eric Clapton on declining guitar sales. And you know, Clapton is my man. He's my number one influence. Although I may have to disavow him. He's getting crazy in his old age. Conspiracy theory and just weird stuff. Anyway, Eric Clapton is quoted in headlines of Billboard. Maybe the guitar is over. Quote. Maybe the guitar is over. And if you Google, you'll find a number of other articles. I found another article that I didn't print off, but it was talking about how the guitar may be over based on the continuing declining sales of Fender and Gibson, which are the two biggest brands. So this was 2017, 4 years ago. This is 2021. Now we're in a boom. So much so that American manufacturers can't keep up, and retailers are saying that even though sales are at a record high, they're saying that if they had more instruments, they'd sell more. So there's a number of factors that created this, but primarily the pandemic. People are at home, had nothing else to do, and for whatever reason, people decided, hey, I've always wanted to learn guitar, I'm going to do it.
Almost everybody wants to.
So here's some statistics for you. Let's look at guitar sales historically. In 1950, in the U.S., these are all U.S. numbers, guitar sales was at 200,000 units a year. 200,000. And it was considered, it wasn't a cool instrument. It was just for folk people. It wasn't really a cool instrument. Maybe country, I suppose. But it started to gain steam. You know, Buddy Holly, I'm sure didn't hurt it. You know, that sort of stuff in the late 50s, you know, and the rockabilly. Rockabilly was hot in the 50s. That rockabilly had a hot stretch of about 5 years, right? Maybe from 55 to 60 or so. Rockabilly was hot. 1963, it had tripled. So this over a 13-year period, it had tripled to 650,000 in sales. 1964, something happened. What happened? I know you know the answer. What happened?
Well, you know, guitar music was on its way out per the letter from, I think it was Decca Records.
Yeah.
We're not interested because
the letter to the Beatles, right?
Guitar music's on its way out. So that was literally the reason why Decca said they didn't want to sign the Beatles.
And what happened in 64?
The Beatles, man.
They were on the Ed Sullivan Show in the U.S. I think they played 2 times, or was it 3 times? Oh, Jeff was born 1964. Fedge, I'm sorry. This is what happened in 1964. I completely got it wrong. This is the reason right here.
That's why guitar sales went up.
Absolutely. No, 1964, the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show multiple times, at least 2. We didn't have a TV at the time, so I couldn't watch it. I was a little kid, wee lad. And 1 year later, well, okay, we had 63 numbers. It was 650,000. 1965 numbers was, well, that's the Beatles. Well, that and the Beatles, horse apiece. You're right, Fedge. I mean, one or the other. Either you or the Beatles, both equal influence. 1965, from 63 sales of 650,000, 1965, 1.5 million sales of guitar. And the peak year into that period was 1971, 2.5 million guitar sales. And then they started declining. And there was a resurgence in the 80s. I don't have the actual numbers of what they were, and what has happened now, so what happened, there was a decline in where we're at now, acoustic guitar imports, this is just imports, for the first half of 21, imports, not including made in the U.S., was just under 1 million units, which is a 35% higher than any 6-month period over the last 10 years. During the same time frame, electric guitar imports was 965,000. So these are 6-month numbers. So that's 2 million imports only. Annualized, that's 4 million.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even include domestically made. So I tried to find sales, total unit sales, and all I could find were dollar sales. I mean, I probably, if I'd started more than 2 minutes before the podcast, I might have been able to find it. No, I started more than 2, but it was 20 minutes. So we're probably at all-time highs. I mean, the last number we have the peak was 2.5 million. And now we know we're at 2 million just in imports in the first 6 months. You analyze that's 4 million plus what's made in the U.S. Wouldn't you guess there's 500,000 made per year in the U.S.? I mean,
I'd think pretty easily.
Think so. I mean,
but I don't, because U.S. manufactured guitars are expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, most people that are starting off, they're buying Ibanez or Takamine or Epiphone or something.
Well, U.S. made are also, U.S. guitar factories are also running at peak capacity with production booked into the middle of 2022. Yet production still lags demand. I'm reading from this article. This is Music Trades magazine. Yet production still, and this is like a week old. This is a very recent article. Yet production still lags demand. Retailers complain about lengthy back orders and insufficient inventory, and most manufacturers say their sales have been constrained by product shortages. One happy consequence of this is that retail margins, you're not getting a sale on a guitar now. Yeah. Retail margins are up 3 points in pre-COVID levels, and 3 points is huge. If in retail business, a grocery store, if they make 1 or 2% net, I mean, that's not what they make. So if you could raise your bottom line by 3 points, Guitar Center has been struggling for decades. So if they can raise their points, but the guitar industry is haunted by, will the guitar crash like it did post Beatles? Because what happened? 2.5 million in sales in 1971. And then people realized, well, this is a hard instrument, or I'm bored, I got something else to do, or my life changed, I got married. Many, many things happened to us. But at that time, the demographic that was interested in guitar was primarily teen boys. That's it, teen boys. Rare was the adult person, male, female, that would.
Plus, it's a lot to do with what pop culture is doing too. It's really cyclical thing. You look at 71, Hendrix had just happened, and Allman Brothers, and you had all these guitar heroes. They're in droves. They were guitar heroes.
Well, they're saying that. So, and then another thing that happened, Fender, which is one of the big two, for those of you that may not be a guitar player. I mean, there's Fender and there's Gibson, and then it's like Ford and Chevy if you're a pickup truck owner.
All right.
For guitars, those are the big names. So what happened back then, the decline of first-time buyers took a heavy toll on low-price budget makers. In 1973, Music Trades reported that 69 guitar factories in Nagoya, Japan closed because they couldn't keep their doors open. And also Harmony in K closed down. Remember Harmony in K?
Absolutely.
The same time, makers of premium guitars continued to post record results right up until a sharp economic downturn in the late 70s. Makers of effects pedals, replacement pickups. So what happened, etc., benefited from this trend. So what happened is you had this huge influx of players, and the majority of them stopped, but you had a big pickup on people who stuck with it and got better guitars, so on and so on. Here, Numa Carter says they're seeing. Thanks for joining. Good to see you on here, Numa. There seems to be a lot of guitars out there around where I live. I think people will refer to the real guitar, the computerized guitar music. Yeah, man, that's where it's at. That's where it's at. Anyway, so this article posits that the addressable market is radically different than it was back then. First of all, Fender has, they realized that when they were trying to fight the downtrending sales of guitars, they realized that one of the problems is it's hard to learn the instrument, even though you got YouTube and all that stuff, but it's just, sometimes it's hard to learn an instrument when you're a beginner. So they have a Fender Play, which is an online learning program. At the height of the pandemic in March of 2020, the company offered a 3-month free trial of the service, expecting 10 or 20,000 to sign up. Almost crashed their service because within days they had over a million signups.
Wow.
And even to this day, they've retained 250,000 of those million that sign up for free. So you got 250,000 who are new subscribers at Fender learning how to play. And you got all kinds of YouTube videos as well. So here are trends. I'm a business guy, MBA, love talking business. Let's talk about the business of guitars. The premise is that the addressable market group is much different than it was in 1971. First of all, you got the population. The population in the U.S., we're talking U.S. numbers. Although the same thing happened in the UK. I read an article, the same thing. So this is not just a U.S. phenomena. The guitar is exploding worldwide, while other countries as well. The UK had the same exact report, 35% increase. The population in 1971 was 211 million, and it's 327 million today. So you just have more people. Number two, in 1971, it was all teen boys. You didn't have adult. I mean, nobody really. You might have the odd weirdo adult who wanted to learn an instrument as an adult, but people would look at you and like, "What's wrong with you? You're supposed to." It was not accepted. Now it's youth as well, male and female, women. The Taylor Swift phenomena. Taylor Swift wearing a dress, a flowered dress with cowboy boots. I mean, young women more women are taking on guitar. That's why this trend, even before the pandemic, acoustic sales have, for the first time, took over electric sales, and now they're still higher. But it's primarily given because young women, primarily wanted to be like Taylor Swift. But it's not just. There's also a lot of adult learners as well. And all the way up to classic rock, even to retirees. So it's culturally more acceptable to pick up the guitar. And so you've got a lot more to choose from than just the teen boys. Females are 51% of the U.S. population. So you add in women, immediately you more than doubled your prospective market.
Right. And it used to be like, 30 years ago when I was really getting into playing guitar, it was super rare that there was a female guitar player that you were like, wow, she's amazing. And now they're everywhere, dude.
It's almost, the novelty is almost worn off. You
Right.
go on these social media, Instagram or whatever, and you have a lot of beautiful or attractive woman, and you say, oh, she's only getting attention because she's beautiful. And then you watch her play and you're like,
yeah,
she just happens to be attractive. She is just, and over and over and over and over. And not that the attraction is the main part of it, but there are many women who can just slay on guitar. Many. You keep seeing them on social media. So you've got a much bigger. And number three, working from home. Working from home, which freed up the time to begin with, is not really going away. I mean, the worst market to be in, I think the worst business to be in right now is owning office space. I would not want to be owning office space.
Man, there's so many gigantic buildings right now that they're doing nothing. And you know, the people on the corporate level are figuring out we don't have to buy these.
What about being a filmmaker? Hey, John, I was going to message you. We would like to have you on our podcast. You're doing so, and I probably should have done this privately. But if you ever have time, we would love to have you on. In fact, you could probably do more than one time. So, because you all the stuff you're doing, absolutely, man. Love to have you on. Oh man, that'll be great. We'll have to work that out, John. The stuff that you're doing is just. I see some of your posts. It's just. I think it'd be more than even one episode, possibly. But let's talk about that. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. What were we talking about, Jimmy?
Of course.
Oh, the fourth thing was the tools for this, according to this article, the tools for learning the guitar is so much more. Back in 1971, you had a Mel Bay book that was not teaching how to play Beatles songs, or what you probably wanted to learn. You probably picked it up or a Hendrix. I mean, it was really thin on the ground. Now you can Google learn to play any song pretty much.
And
Mel Bay, yes. Those of us of a certain age remember Mel Bay. Mel Bay was the only thing available to learn an instrument.
And now you Google how to play it, and the dude, there's like a 90% chance that the dude that played on the album is on the internet showing you how to play.
Yeah. So, I mean, the resources, the world is different than in 1971. We're using 1971 as the peak of the post-Beatles rise in guitar sales. And there's not really one. I don't think you can even point. I mean, rock guitar, where guitar is prominent like it was. I mean, the Beatles were a guitar band. I mean, you had three guys playing it. Well, if you include bass guitar, is bass a guitar? It's called bass guitar. If bass is a guitar, three guys and a drummer, three guitars. I mean, it's much more spread out now.
It'd be hard to argue against that era being the height of guitar at the height of its powers, with not Beatles, Stones, bands like Pink Floyd and Hendrix and Cream and Clapton, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. Santana and Grateful Dead, and there's all this incredible jazz happening, and there's all this incredible country guitar playing going on, and that's when the guitar was at the height of its powers, I believe. Yeah, the Allman Brothers, the whole Southern rock thing was happening.
Yeah. So, it's not being driven from my standpoint by cultural phenomena. It's just being driven by one mainstream. Everybody remembers, if they saw of a certain age, usually, people that are older than me that were able to see the Beatles, and that's still, you can find people still talking about it, seeing the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. Culture is so fragmented. I just came across, and not to be political at any regard, but there was, the singers are so fragmented. There was a meme of Mitt Romney giving cupcakes to Kirsten Sinema. Is that how you say her name? She's a Democrat. He's a Republican. And they were imitating a meme from a TV show that I'd never even familiar with. It's called Lasso, where apparently this American football player is coaching a British soccer team. And for those who are fans of it, they are zealous fans. I got to admit that I'd never heard of it, but the person writing the article was saying that most likely one of Romney's aides told him he needs to do this, and they didn't think that a 70-something-year-old guy was familiar with this show. Well, I'm not. I mean, you got to have Apple Plus. I mean, it's so fragmented. It used to be three networks. Now you have to have you have Netflix. Do you have Hulu? Do you have
I know.
all of those things? Apple Plus. I'm not. I don't want to buy another subscription, but apparently that have it. People love it so much that they do this meme, and everybody gets it immediately because it's something the coach always brings cookies or something or biscuits, whatever it is, to the owner of the team. And so she dressed up the way the owner of the team does, and he dressed up like the coach does, and it was a meme that a certain segment that had enough power. Well, things are so fragmented. There isn't one powerful source like that motivating people. So that's also positive that it's not going to go away when they become unpopular, I feel, for the guitar. Back to the guitar. I think it's a great time. I mean, I think it's I love it. I mean, all the great guitar music that's coming out
Oh yeah, it's
from all angles,
yeah. There's an endless stream of great players right now.
I saw Saint Vincent, and she's a badass guitar player. I wasn't that familiar with her, but I only knew about her because she's got a really cool guitar, signature guitar. Was that what you call it? Name where you put your name on it? Is it signature guitar?
Mm-hmm.
And it looks unlike many other guitars. Very unique shaped body, and I remember see it in the guitar magazines, and I was intrigued just by that, and didn't know much about her music. And it's a lot of electronica, but she goes into a lot of solos. And she played on the Grammys a couple years ago. I remember watching her play. She's really excellent guitar player. Anyway, digressing. Oh yeah. There was TV Hee Haw, Glenn Campbell show, Johnny Cash show, Porter
Yeah,
Wagner. Yeah, Jim
100%.
Stafford. I don't know those, but Hee Haw was huge. Buck Owens on there. Oh yeah, Samantha Fish. Woo! Susan Tedeschi. Yeah, and with the Tedeschi Trucks band, her voice is amazing as well. Samantha Fish. Oh, she can.
She's amazing.
She is amazing. So there's a lot of great female and male guitar players.
Alive and
We basically had one arm tied behind our back because we only had one half of our population who are interested in playing guitar. Now we are, utilize all your prospective people who can play things, and if you tap into the other 50%, 51%, because women are 51% of our population, we're going to have a lot better. We're going to have twice as much good music just by the all off averages. So
it'll be easier to look at too.
Well, we're not supposed to say that stuff, but we are men. It's great. You can hear great music, and it's attractive person playing it. I mean, I'm not going to complain. What else we got? We've done our 40 minutes, so we've reached our minimum.
Let's have John on.
Yeah, we'll have to reach out to him and get that scheduled. But I love this episode today. Guitar. I'm so happy to hear, the guitar instrument it's depressing. Back, 5 years ago, reading articles, the guitar is dying. Why can't they live the instrument? Like, when you have a whole network of people that are loving an instrument that you love, and I love the guitar.
Well, that's something that last thing I'll say is that I've given lessons to many people. Probably 15 years ago, at one point, I had 100 students a week. And now it's like I'm at that age where all the people that were little kids that I was teaching, now they're like 25 years old. They're getting, all of them that stuck with it, they're getting pretty good. And hearing them, and seeing like the average of it seems to me like the earlier they start, the better. Most of the students that I had back then, if they started after a certain age, which was probably like 20, most of them don't play anymore. But almost all the students I had back then whose parents started them young, almost all of them still play. So I think there's something to do with at what age do you start, because it's that whole hobby versus habit thing. You start playing an instrument at 10 or 11 years old, it becomes an absolute habit.
Fed just threw something in here, some football stuff.
Fedge, that was the best win we've had. My son and I were in heaven watching that game. We haven't beat a good team like that in so long, and like authoritatively, we were in absolute heaven.
I didn't know you were a Saints fan. I guess you probably told me that before, Fedge.
Sorry about your Saints, bud.
All right. Well, thank you so much for hanging with us. I really enjoy the comments. We've been getting great comments, and just keep it up. I really enjoy having the interaction. It adds so much.
For sure. Yeah.
We'll be back, and have a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I think, everyone that commented, I think, is in the U.S. Have a great Thanksgiving. If you're watching this and you're not from the U.S., have a great week anyway.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And we'll see you all next time.
Peace.